Welcome back to our channel. Today, we've got some incredible stories lined up for you that you won't want to miss. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some captivating stories. Let's dive in. Story 1. A few hours ago, my aunt called my mother about something that happened today. Her irritated voice could be heard across the room. I was curious about what happened, worried something bad had occurred, as I've never heard her so angry, and asked my mother to put her on speakerphone. The following story she told us is parallel to a situation my mother and I went through when I was very young. Here's how it began. Early this afternoon, my aunt, age 52, and her daughter, age 9, went to the store to pick up baking supplies for my cousin to make her first gingerbread house. My cousin had always wanted to make one and was inspired when I shared photos of the holiday goodies I made. I told her it's more fun to make food from scratch and they just taste better, and she wanted to give it a try. That was their plan for this weekend. My cousin and aunt went to Dollar Tree for candy since they could get way more for way less. Then their local grocery store for the good brand name stuff. They had most of the ingredients at home, so they didn't need much. Being the holiday season, they were in line for quite a while. My cousin bounced with excitement, saying how she couldn't wait to get started on the gingerbread house and make it so cute. There was a woman in line behind them, whom my aunt assumed was in her 40s. Whose outfit suggested she could buy anything at full price and still afford her bills for the month. She said with a big smile, "Your daughter has such pretty hair. One thing about the women in my family is that we all have great hair because we take care of it. It's thick, healthy, and beautiful, and we take pride in it." We all stopped using relaxers before my cousin was even born, so it was 100% pure African American hair. It's a lot of work, but the payoff is worth it. My cousin loves getting her hair styled. Today's style was 2 twists over her head like a headband, butterfly clips, and matching bubble balls around 4 separate, evenly parted twists with flower barrettes on the ends. It was windy where they live, so my aunt also gelled her hair down. My aunt thanked the woman for the compliment. My cousin was shy around strangers and inched forward, feeling uneasy as the woman was not on the 6-foot marker on the floor separating them. While my aunt started loading their things onto the conveyor belt, she noticed one of my cousin's flower barrettes fell off and one of her little twists came loose. My aunt told her to pick it up. She has bad knees so as not to lose it. My cousin bent down to get it, and as soon as she stood up, the woman behind grabs her and starts touching her hair. This total stranger put her hands on another stranger's child, especially a black woman's child. Yeah, her obituary would be in the works if it were my kid. When my aunt saw her, she hollered, "Get your freaking hands off my child." The woman stared at her wide-eyed and didn't stop. "She's fine. Her hair is just so pretty, I couldn't resist the urge to touch it." My aunt starts taking her earrings off. It wasn't her first fight. She said, "Lady, I do not know you, and I am not above resisting the urge to touch you." She snatched the woman's hand away and threw it aside as it smacked into the conveyor belt. The woman cried out in pain while clutching her hand and yelled, "What is wrong with you?" My aunt tells her, "You don't put your hands on someone else's child. If I did that to your kid, you'd have me arrested." The woman looks at my cousin, who is on the verge of tears, and says, "I bet your mean mommy beats you at home, doesn't she? You're probably being abused. I can take you away from that pain, baby." My cousin began to step back from the woman, sensing the crazy in her, and this broad quickly grabbed her arm by force. My cousin shrieks, and my aunt backhands the woman clean across the face. The woman just gasped and stared at her like she was crazy. To my aunt's credit, she was the right kind of crazy, the kind you don't mess with when it comes to her cubs. My aunt didn't know if someone called a manager or security or if they were already coming, but they did, and the 2 security men restrained my aunt. She's no small lady. The woman immediately started sobbing and told them, "Arrest this psycho. She assaulted me when all I did was say her daughter's hair was pretty." My aunt said, "You put your hands on my baby. You're lucky I'm not whooping your butt up and down these aisles." The cashier and some onlookers vouched for her, saying she didn't know the woman who just started touching my cousin's hair for no reason. The manager told one of the security guards to stay with the woman while he, my aunt, and the other guard went to his office. My aunt told them everything that happened before they checked the CCTV. Everything from the woman touching my cousin's hair to my aunt slapping the taste out of her mouth when she tried to grab my cousin by force. Everything my aunt told them was caught on video. The manager asked if my cousin was okay, and she said yes. She was just scared for the other woman because she thought her mom was going to, and I quote, beat the white off that woman and curb stomp her. This made the security guy laugh. He was a black man with a daughter himself and agreed that his wife would have done the same thing. They went back to the woman and told her my aunt was acting out of self-defense for her child. The manager told her that because she grabbed the little girl by force, she was on the hook for first-degree kidnapping charges. This is when the woman started fuming and shouted, "It's not my fault this skin pigment-related slur is a horrible mother." And there it was. The infamous word that ended Paula Deen's career and made Dave Chappelle a household name. The manager, the security guards, the onlookers, my aunt saw a lot of dropped jaws and heard a lot of shocked gasps. The woman realized what she said and sputtered, trying to save face. The manager promptly told her to shut up and asked my aunt if she wanted to press charges. She said, yes. The security guard who waited with the woman slapped some lovely silver bracelets to go with her outfit and escorted her out of the store. She was charged with attempted kidnapping and hate speech. My aunt's $40 purchase was comped, and they went home. No matter how sweet my cousin makes her gingerbread house, I'm sure the justice she and my aunt got today was even sweeter. Story 2. This happened today while my mom, 39, my two sisters, 14 and 7, and I, 20-year-old female, were cleaning out our yard. For context, we live in a smaller, older-looking house on a relatively gentrified street with a lot of small to medium-sized but high-end apartment buildings. It's still the same neighborhood despite them being 3 to 5-story buildings with underground parking. So we have 2 big metal dumpsters in the neighborhood, one at the start of the neighborhood and one near the end. We live near the middle of the neighborhood, so my mom decided to just request a private bin from the government to place outside our own gate, so as to not have to walk too much to throw away our trash when we are busy. Well, let's just say that after 5 years of rough treatment from the government waste collection company, it gave its last service, and we had to request a replacement, which will take a few days. In the meantime, we had to take turns walking to the dumpsters on either side to throw our trash. It's never a problem and shouldn't be because it's all of our taxes that pay for waste collection anyway. My mom sent both of my sisters to throw a bag of yard cuttings to any of the dumpsters, and they decided to go to the one near the start of the neighborhood for once. It's all right. My mom said okay and stayed near the gate to keep an eye on them while I continued to clean the porch. A few minutes later, I could hear my mom start yelling, then running in the direction that my sisters went, and I nearly died thinking something horrible had happened, so I followed her. At the start of the neighborhood were my sisters, near the dumpster that was off to the side of the building, and a woman was full-on screaming at them from her second-floor balcony with her husband just watching from the sliding door. I couldn't hear what the woman was saying as of yet, but I did hear when my mom started tearing the lady a new one from in front of my sisters when she got there. My mom is a bit of a hothead, and while I am too, she tends to make irrational decisions more, and her English begins to slip up. English is her second language, which makes it hard to get points across or understood. So, as usual, I walked up and took over, telling her to calm down while I dealt with this rude person. My mom pulled back my sisters to the other side of the road, and I looked up to the dumb person on the second floor. Me? What in the world are you saying, ma'am? Lady, you can't throw your trash there. I'm going to give you the trash collection bill. Me, ma'am. This is a public neighborhood dumpster. Lady, I pay to live in this neighborhood and for this trash collection. You can't throw your trash in there unless you pay for it to be picked up. At this point, I was utterly confused about whether she was foolish and didn't see the big fat government stamp painted on all sides of the dumpster. Me, ma'am, we live in this neighborhood too. She then made the mistake of ignoring me and looking towards my sisters on the other side of the street and began to yell her head off. Lady, both of you take the trash you threw out of the dumpster. Now, or I'm calling the police. My sisters are 7 and 14. She wanted to call the police on them, which immediately set my mom off again. I was quite irritated. Mom, shut up. I'm their mom. You talk to me, or again you haul yourself back into your apartment. Me? Mom, go home. But this lady was absolutely screaming and pulled out her cell phone, repeating that she was going to call the police and make us pay for trash collection. I immediately lost my patience. Me, call them then. Get it over with. Call them and tell them that you want them to arrest a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old for throwing trash in the dumpster. The lady seemed taken aback, but began directing this at me again. Lady, I'll have them lock you all up. You're polluting the neighborhood and dumping trash when you don't pay for the service. Take the trash out of the dumpster before I come break all your faces. Me? You don't pay the waste company either. Call the police and tell them all of this. Do it before I do. That made the husband finally step in, and he pulled her back into the apartment while she still screamed. He came outside by himself while we heard crashing and slamming inside the apartment. Husband, you don't have to take the trash back out of the dumpster. Just don't do it again. That made me even more irritated, but I took a few deep breaths. Me, why can't I throw trash here, in the public neighborhood dumpsters? Funded by my tax dollars just the same as it's funded by yours. The man had the audacity to snort and shake his head. Man, I know about your people. Sweetheart, don't lie to us. It clicked on what the both of them were insinuating. Me, you piece of absolute trash. Do not pretend to know anything about me or my family. Whatsoever. Keep in mind that this was at like 10 a.m. on a Monday, and the street was not empty, so the few people going about their business had been stunned by the argument, and a neighbor had already called the police about a public disturbance. The police drive a huge expensive Ford truck that they spend all their money on to get, because, of course, they did. This is a developing country after all. And boy, did that whole story that me, my family, the crazy lady and her husband, and a few neighbors had to recount not go well for the crazy lady. Especially when they had to step into the apartment building manager's office to review the security footage, which made it even worse for the crazy lady and husband, because the apartment manager was appalled and didn't say a single word to anyone other than the police until she slipped aside and called the owner of the building. Let's just say that my 14 and 7-year-old sisters did not end up taking an air-conditioned ride in the back seat of the police Ford to the station to be charged with threats against a minor and public disturbance. And neither did they get an immediate eviction notice for breaking their lease agreement, while their wife went off to solidify her criminal record, screaming at police officers. People really be crazy nowadays. Story 3. Several years ago, I worked as a receptionist at a healthcare facility. They were doing some renovations and had standing weekly meetings with the fire marshal. After the first meeting, the fire marshal asked me to type up some notes. After clearing it with my manager, I started transcribing until he came and stood uncomfortably close behind me. I asked him several times to stand on the other side of my desk, and he replied he wanted to make sure I didn't make a typing mistake. I quickly finished the transcription and handed it back to him. As he was reviewing it, he casually asked me on a date. I politely said, "I'm sorry, I have to decline." The man was at least twice my age. The next day I came into work to see a note on my chair from my boss. It basically stated that while I looked nice, someone complained that they could see down my shirt. It was a knit sleeveless V-neck sweater, and I was wearing a blazer over it. It was not low cut. The only way to see down my shirt was to stand directly over me, so I knew who complained and why. I explained this to my boss. The next week, I wore a knit turtleneck and blazer with black pants. The fire marshal came in, met with my boss, and again asked to transcribe the report. While I was transcribing, he came to stand behind me once again and started rubbing my shoulders. I immediately jumped out of my chair and took several steps away. I told him loudly, "I do not want you to touch me. If you cannot stand on the other side of my desk, then I will not transcribe your notes." He then asked me out again, and I told him, "No." I finished transcribing and then left my desk. The next day, I received another note, this time stating that I had acted unprofessionally, yelling at my desk and walking away when a guest needed my assistance. I again explained what happened to my manager and received no reaction. We got the inspection report back saying we failed. The third week, I wore a high-neck tunic and slacks, both being at least 3 sizes too big. When the fire marshal asked me to transcribe the notes, I simply said, "No, I have other work to do." Then he started badgering me about not going out with him, asking if I thought I was too good for him. I stated, "What part of no do you not understand? You are old enough to be my father, and I am not interested." The next day, another note stated I was purposely being rude to a guest. When I talked to my manager, I asked her when she was going to do her job and offer me some protection against this predator. Again, no response, but again the inspection failed. The fourth week, when I saw the fire marshal coming, I simply left my desk and went on break. I didn't return until after he left. When I left work that day, the fire marshal was waiting by my car, so I caught a ride home with a coworker and came back later to pick up my car. You guessed it, I received another note complaining I had abandoned my post and another failed inspection. I didn't bother reporting it to my manager, but I did call her manager. Week 5. I'm at my desk when the fire marshal comes towards me. I immediately buzz my manager and her boss and leave the speaker open. The fire marshal started being aggressive, complaining about how he waited for me after work and asking when I was going to go out with him. I said to him in as professional a manner as I could muster that I did not appreciate him coming on to me. I was not interested in transcribing his reports. I was never going to go out with him, and I wanted him to stop stalking me. He then told me he was going to get my address and meet me at my house. At this point, my manager and her boss came out of the office. The fire marshal was escorted out. A call was placed to his boss, and he was never to come to our facility again. Later, I heard he was dismissed over the incident. My boss was written up for failing in her duty to protect her staff from a predator and was transferred to a facility 100 miles away. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing content. We love hearing your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let us know which story was your favorite. And as always, stay tuned for more real-life stories next time. See you soon!